Rabbit Trap is a 2025 American-British film written and directed by Bryn Chainey in his feature-length debut, and stars Dev Patel, Rosy McEwen, and Jade Croot. The plot follows a married couple who are also musicians that move from London to rural Wales and end up disturbing something mystical and ancient, creating a rift in reality. So this one caught me a bit off guard in a way, I guess you could say. So I'm a fan of the SpectreVision production company, started by Elijah Wood and a couple other guys. And the other day I decided to take a look at their filmography. It'd been a while and I wanted to see if I had missed, anything over these last couple of years. I guess I just realized I hadn't really been paying attention, and I wanted to see if I was missing anything, over these last few years. And their most recent film was Rabbit Trap. So, I jumped off the couch and drove to the theater. It was actually the last day it was playing, so I'm glad that I made it. I didn't remember seeing any trailers or anything like that, but the synopsis was really intriguing, to say the least. Although I think the write-ups on sites like Wikipedia should have been more obscure, because I felt like some of the element of surprise had been spoiled for me. So what I'm going to do with this review is I'm going to ignore all that, and I'm going to try not to spoil anything for you, just in case you wanted to go in blind. So you've got married couple Daphne and Darcy, which is obviously adorable, played by Rosy McEwen. I think that's her name. Yeah, I keep wanting to say Rose McGowan. Oh my god. Rosy McEwen and Dev Patel. They are a pretty happy couple, although like all relationships, they have some unresolved issues. But for the most part, they're happy, and they go along. They go together great. They're a great couple. One of the more interesting aspects of this film is that they are musicians, and they make experimental electronic music. And they moved out to a rural countryside to work on, I think it's actually Daphne's new album. She's the artist, and Darcy just kind of contributes to her work. And he spends a lot of his time making field recordings of whatever random cool sounds he can find, out in the woods, the forest, and all that. And like I said, Daphne uses those recordings for her music. But what I didn't catch on to at all, and I don't know if this is my fault, maybe I was just too stoned or something, but this movie's set in 1973. I mean, there is a lot of analog recording equipment here, but I thought they were just hipsters, to be honest, which I'm fine with. But anyways, despite the rural country setting, I think it should have been more obvious that it was the 70s. Again, or is it just me? I don't know. I never said I wasn't an idiot, guys. But for a movie, set in the 70s, a modern movie set in the 70s, we're used to seeing different, certain production, certain production styles, gritty, more of a gritty production, or just, something to make it feel 70s-ish. And I just really didn't get that here. Not a huge complaint, to be honest, but I think I would have liked that. Anyway, so I wasn't familiar at all with Rosy McEwen, by the way, and her performance here was really good, really, really good. She's a very good actress, but I gotta say, it was Dev Patel that really grabbed my attention. Despite knowing who he was, I've heard his name, a decent amount of times over these last couple of years, but I'd never seen any of his movies, and I was really curious, to see what he would bring to the table here, and not to get ahead of the game, but he's a really, really good actor. He just has these super expressive eyes, and he's got a warmth about him too that really drew me in. And it is clear he's going places, but I definitely want more indie stuff like this with him, if that can be a thing. So one day while he's out recording, Darcy bumps into a young boy who follows him home and ends up befriending him and Daphne. And he ends up coming over to their house, often after that. But they never really seem to learn much about him, like where he lives, his age and all that. Not even his name. They never get a name. Now, I guess, I kind of knew more about him because of the synopsis on, like I said, the Wikipedia, and also the Regal Cinema app. So some things, again, were kind of spoiled for me. Although, honestly, had I not gone in with the information that I had, I'm pretty sure this entire movie would have made no sense to me. I think I would have been pretty lost. All I will say is that there are elements of Welsh mythology here, giving the film a sort of a kind of a folk horror vibe, which is cool, but ultimately doesn't really deliver on the premise, not for me at least. So while things seemed fine at first, the more time that Darcy and Daphne spend with the child, the more weird things get. He starts to come, between them and kind of plays on their fears and insecurities. He learns that Daphne has been, wanting a child for some time, and that she wants to be a mom more than anything. And Darcy has these terrible nightmares, or I guess nightmare because it seems like it's just the same dream over and over again. And this is going to be hard to say, but like a dream where like a strange man appears and eats a piece of fruit. That sounds kind of dumb to say out loud, but it's kind of creepy, I guess, and it really reminded me of something from Talk to Me. Again, I'm starting to see movies or parts of movies that I think seem really inspired by those brothers that did Talk to Me and Bring Her Back. Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's almost blatantly obvious. Anyways, I've seen reviews where people say that this movie is scary, but I just didn't think that it was, which honestly was disappointing for me. I've also seen reviews praising Jade Croot's performance as the child, and I agree that her performance was good, but I also found her character to be just ultimately super annoying. And to add to that, the way that it was handled, again, was really disappointing for me, and just a huge missed opportunity. So I guess I expected more, or maybe something a little bit different, but I'm not really sure what I expected. If this is supposed to be a horror film, it just isn't scary. I also think that it's just too vague for its own good, and I don't think that most people will figure out what exactly is going on. I know I wouldn't have, but I'd really be curious if anyone's seen this. Like, were you just confused the whole time, or is it just me? I don't know, but I'm going to give Rabbit Trap a 5.5 out of 10. I really wanted to love this one, but overall, it didn't really work for me. There are some great, like, psychedelic type visuals. The cinematography really made you feel like you were roaming through the forest, and that was cool. That's definitely for me. Again, I really liked the mythology and folk horror elements, but they weren't really at all explored, which was I think my biggest disappointment here. But the music and acting are super noteworthy. The story, though, ultimately didn't really live up to its potential. Just my 2 cents. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.